I'm Christina Hurtado-Pierson, and this is Crash Course Dramaturgy. I teach theater history, playwriting, and dramaturgy here at Pomona College.
Oh, Christina from the future! Hey, Christina!
Oh, me from the past. You're gonna learn to love dramaturgy. Also, that cute guy from ITS, you married him.
Yes! Are you serious? Tell me more.
Well, me from the past, I was a theater major here at Pomona College, just like you. Wait, that doesn't make any sense to say just like you were. Because I'm me.
Oh boy.
You were a theater major here at Pomona College, and you went out into the big wide world to see what was out there, and you found this field called dramaturgy.
What is dramaturgy?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Christina from the past. It's taking a look at a play and placing it into a historical, social, and economic and cultural context, and then trying to figure out what the heck to do with it. So, if it's a historical play, you might look at the time that it was written, what was going on in the world, what happened in the life of the playwright. If it's a contemporary play, it's all about figuring what it has to offer the world now. And of course, if there's a chance to get some nerdy little pop culture references in there, it's always a lot of fun. So, who came up with dramaturgy? Well, dramaturgy was created by a guy named Gotthold Ephraim Lessing. Lessing was a German theater artist in the 1700s, and he got hired by the Hamburg National Theater to come in as their in-house playwright and critic. See, this was the first time that there had ever been a government attempt to create a national public theater. And so the theater was really concerned that this wasn't going to work. So they decided to stack the deck a little bit. They thought if they put this playwright and critic on their payroll, that he was going to write whatever they wanted and just praise this brand new theatrical endeavor. But not Lessing.
No!
Lessing looks at the work that the theater is doing and he says, guys, some of this is good, some of this is not so good. Here's the thing. If we want our audience to really appreciate the work that we're doing, we have to train them. We are going to train our audiences to become connoisseurs of theater. And I'm going to do this by writing a whole bunch of letters. So he starts writing reviews of the plays that they're doing, and they get compiled into a book called The Hamburg Dramaturgy. In the Hamburg Dramaturgy, he analyzes every single play that's been written by the, I've gone into the weeds on this one.
You do love the weeds.
Lessing writes a whole series of essays. They get put out into the world, and not only do they teach the people of Hamburg how to be better theater connoisseurs, they become the groundwork for the field of dramaturgy. Now, dramaturgy comes and goes throughout time because sometimes we want to have a really critical eye towards theater, and sometimes we just want to watch some trains crash. Fun fact, in 1896, the KT Railroad thought it would be a really good idea to take a couple of decommissioned trains and crash them in the middle of the desert in Texas. As you can imagine, this went real well.
They used to do what for fun?
They brought in about 40,000 people, set up 2 decommissioned trains on railroad tracks, and had it prepared so that the train conductors would be able to jump off before the trains actually collided, because they didn't want people to die. But they ran into some problems. First of all, 40,000 people trying to get a good seat. Well, they couldn't get the crowd to get back far enough from the trains. The trains were delayed by a couple of hours while they had to keep pushing the crowds further and further back. And this is a couple hours of the day in Texas, so it was pretty warm.
Ooh.
They finally got people back far enough, got the conductors on the trains, and sent the trains going towards each other. Now, here's where it gets real bad. Because in 1896, these trains were steam trains, which means they have big boilers full of accelerants in order to make the trains go. Because steam trains basically work by a series of steam explosions making the trains go forward. So they sent 2 steam trains, which are basically giant exploding things, crashing at each other, and not surprisingly, the 2 explosive things crashed into each other and exploded, and it killed 2 people. And the best part is, the guy who did this, of course, got fired for it, and then was rehired the next day and had a 6-decade career with the railroad company. Anyways, dramaturgy, that's what we do.
So dramaturgy is like a thing?
I've been doing theater for as long as I can remember. I did my first play when I was 4 years old. But I think when I really truly fell in love with theater and all of its wild possibilities was when I realized what theater offers the world. Theater isn't just about entertaining people, although that is one of my favorite bits of theater history. Theater is about finding a way to connect to a different time, a different place, a different people. Because with theater, we offer up our understanding of the world to everyone and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what interests me, and this is where I'm coming from. Theater is an incredible tool for bridging that gap across time, across space, across culture, across energy. And now it's time for the mystery object. Let's see what you got for me. Ooh, fun. turntables. Revolving stages have been around for centuries. We know that they were used in the 1700s in kabuki theater. However, they didn't really make their way into European theater until the 19th century. One of my favorite stories about a revolving stage in 19th century European theater, well, it's actually early 20th century, but who's counting? It's all the same, is from the Colosseum Theatre in London in 1904. Now, the Colosseum Theatre had been built as a variety theatre, and the idea was not so much to stage dramatic literature as to provide people with spectacle, and spectacle they did provide. One of the hallmarks of this fantastic performance space was the revolving stage, which is essentially a circular turntable type thing. Think of it as a giant treadmill, if you will. And that is exactly how the impresario who ran the theatre thought of it. And he had this fantastic idea, or so he thought, of reenacting the Derby. The Derby was the big horse race in London. So, in 1904, he got a whole bunch of horses and jockeys and people dressed up to go watch a horse race and put them on this revolving stage and essentially turned it into a giant horse treadmill to reenact the Derby. And in the middle of this reenactment, the braking mechanism broke. And so the stage began to revolve faster and faster, and the horses couldn't keep up. And eventually it threw horses and jockeys and women in big fancy hats into the audience. And miraculously, only one person died, a jockey who got crushed by a horse. Of course, after an event of this mass-scale tragedy, one would expect to shut down the show and maybe not ever do this again. But no, not the Brits, not in 1904. The next night, they decided to do the whole spectacle again. But this time, they hung up a net across the footlights to keep the horses from going into the audience.
Dude, that's awesome. Did you keep doing geology? Whatever happened with geology? You used to really love geology.
You were pretty sure that you were going to fail out of theater someday, so you studied geology as a backup, and you moved to England to do a master's degree, and you started working at a theater over there, fully intending to eventually fail so badly that you would have no other choice than to leave the theater industry completely and go be a geologist. But while in grad school, which was a whole different adventure, you started interning at the Royal Exchange Theatre in Manchester, United Kingdom, and that completely changed your life. You started off in the literary office, and your job was to help the literary manager do coverage for new scripts, and they decided to do a play with an American character. And they said, "Hey, Christina, you're American. Give us some cultural context for this character." And so you gave them some advice, and your boss said, "Hey, did you know this is a whole field called dramaturgy?" And that was it. You were hooked. You ran the Brutward playwriting competition for the Royal Exchange Theatre. Then you moved to New York, where absolutely no one knew who you were or had any appreciation for the work that you've done. So you had to start from the bottom. And you spent your time doing costumes for off-Broadway shows and really bad movies. And you worked in basement theaters where the ground rumbled every time a train went past, and you loved every frickin' second. And you kept doing shows that never quite made it to Broadway or never quite got that big commercial production, but you also never failed quite badly enough to drop out completely. And at some point you just were like, hey, I'm working at theaters that I love, creating shows that I love, working with people that I love, and I'm getting paid for it. This is pretty freaking awesome. And then you got the call.
Wait, what happened?
I got the call from Pomona College asking if I wanted to come back and be a one-year sabbatical cover. And at that point, I was brought in to teach theater history, dramaturgy, and playwriting.
Wait, you teach at Pomona now. What happened, Christina from the future?
I never left. I could be in any role in any show. Oh my God, there are so many. I think Laura from Under the Gaslight by Augustin Daly. She's kind of boring except for the very end when she gets locked into a shed, and instead of waiting for a man to come rescue her, she grabs an axe, hacks her way through the door, then goes out to the railroad where the dude, Snorky, is tied to the railroad tracks and uses her axe to free him before the train goes by. That's who I would be.
Did Firefly ever come back?
Wait, hold on.
So this is a phone now. Wait, what happened to Joss Whedon? It has a keyboard on it. I don't have to press 9 3 times to make a Y. They made a Veronica Mars movie? And a season 4? Wait, the internet is on my phone. Ooh, 2 kids, huh? Oh, Logan. This is intense.